So good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Returning to Campus Orientation. So my name is Anna Kropitsky. I oversee HR at Hudson County Community College, for those of you who may be new to the college. And we also have co-facilitating today, Dr. Peter Cronrath. Peter, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Peter Cronrath, teaching the business department and acting chair of the Academic Affairs Subcommittee of the All College Council.
Thank you, Peter. And then we also have Sirhan Abdullah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sirhan Abdullah, Assistant Professor of Medical and Health Sciences at Hudson County College, and I'll be co-facilitating this training with Anna and Peter.
Thank you. So I want to start off with noting that you must have seen that just a few months ago, the college has put together a return to campus task force. It's a wonderful, fantastic group of people, many people who essentially have contributed to everything that we have been planning as part of health and safety protocols to come back to campus. And so part of the task force, there was a HR working group. So Sirhan, Peter, and I have been part of that HR working group, and the working group, one of the goals of the working group was to put together educational and other training materials about returning to campus, what to expect. And so this is essentially the product of really everyone's work today. So I will begin with, so we'll talk a little bit about the reopening plan that the task force has submitted to the Office of the Secretary of Higher Education as part of the planning effort. We'll talk about some things that you should be mindful of before you come to campus, what to expect in terms of screening on campus, what to expect in terms of kind of life and what's going on in all the buildings, what maybe some expectations with regard to cleaning and other sort of hygiene and sanitation initiatives. What we will also talk about for those of you who are in the classroom, who are instructors, faculty, adjuncts, we'll talk about some of the scenarios that you may want to discuss in your classroom in the beginning of the semester. We'll mention some of the transportation and dining changes on campus, and then we'll essentially open it up for a discussion or just a Q&A in terms of questions for clarification, questions of concern that you may have, and other related items. So the reopening plan was really started with the submission of the reopening plan document to the Office of the Secretary of Higher Education. That was probably the easiest thing that we've done in terms of submitting the plan because the work still goes on. There's lots of still continuous planning, thought processes, protocols that we're fine-tuning to make sure that everyone, including students, staff, and faculty, are coming to campus. For those of you who are coming to campus, because not everyone is, but if you are, that we have all the health and safety measures and protocols in place. So some of the general safeguarding that I'll go over today with regard to the reopening plan really focus on these main areas of what the college has invested in or continues to invest in with regard to returning to campus. The first one is cleaning. That's really a major one. We have a contractor who is doing a lot more cleaning than they've probably ever done before in their life. They're expected to have regular daily cleanings, more frequent cleaning of high touch or high traffic areas, in between classrooms, deep cleaning on a regular basis. So there's lots and lots of cleaning going on, as you may see around the campus. We are also investing in an air purification system, or two for that matter. And so that's a big part of the health and safety. If anything, that we are probably going beyond what are some of the expectations or some of the what other colleges are doing. Face coverings we'll mention in the presentation, because that's really the best individual way that each one of us can help with the effort to minimize the risk of spread of COVID-19. Supplies is something that we basically anything you need in terms of extra hand sanitizers and a mask, perhaps a plexiglass, perhaps PPE or other PPE, other cleaning products. The college will be providing all of this. So you just want to make sure that you know who your department point person is for supplies, and to discuss anything that you may need in that regard with them. We'll talk about social distancing and what the college has done in terms of signage. As you can see from this picture, there's signs everywhere. There's little footsteps everywhere, all over the campus, all the different buildings. The other thing is training. So this HCCC orientation, the one we're having today, is one of those training efforts. And then the other one, which you may have received already, you may have completed already, is the Safe Colleges Compliance Training, also related to just general COVID awareness, cleaning, and perhaps stress and anxiety during COVID. And I'll make a quick note here about testing. We're not requiring testing before coming to campus, but there are certainly certain situations that may come up where we would encourage you to get tested. So let's move here. Sirhan,
All right, I'm here. All right, everyone. So before coming to campus, you really want to focus on understanding some of the more common symptoms of COVID-19. So if you exhibit any symptoms that you cannot attribute to any other medical condition, such as like fever, chills, cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headaches, any new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. These are the more common symptoms that a lot of people with COVID-19 may experience. There are other symptoms that that are being reported that you probably won't see on this list. But if by any means you feel sick, or you have an unusual symptom that you cannot attribute to any medical condition that you've experienced before, we do recommend that you stay home, okay? Because every single day a lot of symptoms are being reported and are being documented and are shared with everyone in the US. So we're not saying that you need to, we're not saying that your symptom is COVID-19, but it can be, and it may be. We don't recommend that I want to reiterate this a little bit differently. So two things that are, highly advised and recommended to stop the spread of COVID-19. One is wearing a mask, and two is testing, okay? So the college is not forcing anybody to go get tested, but we do recommend and we highly advise that you get frequently tested, okay? Especially if you experience any unusual symptom. So if you're exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19, if you come into close contact with someone who tested positive for COVID, if you're an essential worker, so you could be an adjunct or a full-time faculty member that works at the college, and you're considered an essential worker in a healthcare facility. So we have faculty in our nursing department who work as staff nurses in different facilities. So you're considered an essential worker. So we do recommend that you get frequently tested. If you are in our large crowd with no social distancing, especially, we do highly advise that you get tested. Travel. So this is so we do have there is a link on the questionnaire form that you're going to fill out as you're coming into campus. It has a link to the more common travel areas where we highly advise that you get tested if you travel to those areas, or we recommend that you quarantine when you come back. And in general, just stay home if you're not feeling well. Okay, if you're not feeling well, if you feel a little different, it's better safe than sorry. Okay, So, some people are exhibiting no symptoms at all. Some people have COVID-19 and they're completely asymptomatic, and there are many who have just one symptom or two or three. But either way, call your supervisor, let them know that you're not feeling well, and it's better to stay home and reach out to your healthcare provider, and discuss with them your symptoms. Okay. So any one of these symptoms you see on the list, or anything outside of this list that you feel is unusual, that you can't attribute to anything else. So I'll give you an example. So you may be someone that has arthritis, so you have joint pain, right? So if your arthritis is, if your joint pain is related to the arthritis, then that's a little bit different. But if you have joint pain that you've never experienced before, or back pain, then we recommend that you seek some kind of medical advice and that you stay home. Next.
I just wanted, thank you, Sharon. I just wanted to point out, for calling your supervisor. So for staff and administration, I think that just call your supervisor. For faculty, for instructors, for adjuncts, you may call your coordinator, or email your coordinator, or your dean. And so one of the efforts is so that we also, from an employee perspective, HR will be notified as well, so that we have a better sense as far as what's going on with everyone. And everything, I should note that everything that we do, we still had to adhere to all the HIPAA and other confidentiality measures. But we do want to make sure that we are also taking the appropriate steps in the event that you may end up testing positive, you may end up, getting worse, God forbid. But then we are also taking measures to perhaps protect others who may have been in contact with you when you were on campus. So that's why it's important. And I also would note, it's one of those situations where normally, if let's say you have sore throat, runny nose, you just kind of take Tylenol or whatever, or take Robitussin, and you kind of power through the day. This is not one of those situations. We really want to make sure that you are aware of the symptoms, and you are mindful that it's not just you who will be impacted by the spread. Right, so let me move on. Sirhan, was that you or me?
No, that's me. I'm good. I'll take
Okay.
I'll take it. So,
Okay.
So just real quickly, because I'm trying to figure out if it's my house or someone on the call. Does someone have a chirping fire alarm?
I think it's your house. I'm not hearing any alarms.
I don't hear any either.
Just a chirping. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So if you hear any chirping, we recommend you get tested for COVID-19. That was a joke.
I may have a bird sitting on my shoulder.
So the way at the college we have it set up right now with screening. So we have these thermal mirrors that as you're coming into the campus, right before you come to campus, you're going to be required to fill out one of the intake questionnaire forms, and it has some questions that you need to sort of pass before you come to the campus. And some of the questions are, the question if you have any of some of the symptoms that we had listed on the previous slide. If you have a mask, there's the more common questions that you ask as you're coming into a building. So what happens is you're being screened. Your temperature is being checked as you're coming into the campus. And we're going to show you a video here that shows you how the thermal mirrors look and how quick this process is. You want to click on it, Anna, if you don't mind?
Yes.
So you can see that it's a pretty quick process. Now, in the event, you're coming into the building and you fail the temperature check, meaning that the thermal mirror read a temperature reading 100.4 or above. We will have you sit down for 15 minutes and we'll have your temperature rechecked to make sure that it wasn't 100 degrees outside and you walk 6 blocks and then you're getting your temperature checked because it'll show you a different reading. So we do have you wait 15 minutes and have your temperature rechecked just to make sure that you get an accurate reading. You want to add anything to that, Anna? You want to talk about the IDs?
The only thing I want to add, so as you saw in the video, there are some people that did not have a mask on. That's not going to fly here. You have to have a mask on to enter the building, and we will provide masks if you don't have one. So that's the only thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, this is important, and I just wanted to stress the importance of wearing a mask. If someone's not wearing a mask, they're going to be asked to wear a mask, and then if they refuse or they're resistant to wearing a mask, that there's disciplinary action that has to be taken. So security is going to be involved with anybody who's not going to wear a mask. This is mandated by the state of New Jersey, not just Hudson County Community College.
Right. And so I wanted, I guess, another way to look at it is we consider, so if you're refusing to do something that we are obligated by the executive order to reinforce as part of the returning to campus, we consider that essentially a risk, an immediate risk or immediate threat to the campus. And so whether it's a colleague or a visitor or a student who, let's say they came in a mask and then they take it off, we do, to the extent that you feel comfortable, or if you are in the classroom, this is one of your students, please feel free to just remind them that this is something that everyone is required to do. But then if you feel like they are simply refusing to do so, you do have the opportunity to call security. And we will be providing security. So we'll provide the contact information for security as part of this presentation and a follow-up that I'll circulate. But we're also planning to have the general security information, contact information available in each of the classrooms. So that hopefully you do have a phone with you, and so that's all really you need, and you are able to call security if you need to. I really hope that no one really will have to be in that situation. We are doing all of this educational training and campaigns and orientations, and I really hope we don't have to be there. But in case there are some individuals who are testing the limits or otherwise refusing to do something, we will take the appropriate action to make sure that they are not a threat to the health and safety of the entire campus. All right. Next, Peter, I think this one is yours.
So as a general protocol, the college has everyone wearing face coverings in all buildings at all times. The question did come up previously, if I'm sitting in my office working, can I take my face mask off? Obviously, if you're by yourself with closed doors, you can take your face covering off. But once others are around, you should have your face mask on at all times. Hallways and stairwells, there are directional instructions as far as one-way traffic flows. That is to cut down on individuals congregating in certain areas, as well as postage signs for limitations on capacity for elevators and all classrooms, meeting areas. Those can be found outside the doors as the pictures show. And additionally, if you start to feel on any point in your time at campus, you should, number one, notify your supervisor, and number two, consider going home and following protocols for either getting tested or quarantined.
Thank you, Peter. I just want to emphasize the fact that you may come in totally fine, temperature is fine, but then let's say, you're here the whole day, or you have more than one class kind of back to back, and you're starting to feel unwell later in the day. You need to be mindful of that, because that's the point where you may start exhibiting symptoms. And so we do ask again at that point that you contact your supervisor, your coordinator, your dean, and just let them know you're not feeling well and that you need to leave campus. And then Peter will go through some of this, how that may impact students and how to try to address that with students. The other part of the health and safety protocols is just basic cleaning and washing hands. You will get supplies, or you should get supplies as part of your department effort for your working area, perhaps for your station in a classroom if you prefer, although there will be a schedule in terms of when the classes are cleaned, that's posted by our maintenance. And but basic washing hands, sanitizing hands before eating, after going to the bathroom. I think these are kind of very hopefully not surprising aspects of needing to wash your hands. Finally, just a couple of notes in terms of transportation. Perhaps not for, I'm not sure if many employees take the shuttle, but I know students do. So if someone asks you a question, shuttle schedule will be very limited, to the point where it's almost kind of a reservation basis, or as needed basis, to make sure that we have reduced capacity and cleaning available. So just be aware of that. If a student or others may ask you, the only food cafe that will be open on campus would be the Bits and Bites Cafe in the STEM building, and that will be a to-go service. There will be no tables or chairs in that area, to make sure that we're not necessarily encouraging people to sort of stay around. We do hope the weather continues to be really nice and that you take advantage of perhaps eating in the culinary park if you're on the Journal Square campus, or there's if you're on the North Hudson campus, there's an open area outside on I guess it's a terrace on the 7th floor. But generally, I would just be mindful to bring your own food and drink. And actually, Peter will talk about food and beverage in the classroom. But generally, again, one of the reasons why we are careful about where you're eating and who you're eating with is because in order to eat or drink, you have to take off your mask. And so that kind of basic action provides a certain level of risk. So that's why we just want to make sure we're limiting those circumstances to perhaps you in your office or in an open space, open area. Peter, you want to ready to talk about the classroom?
So all classrooms will have signage outside of each classroom with occupancy for social distancing, as you can see by the picture. It's my understanding there will also be signage for cleaning. So once the room has been cleaned, it will be noted on a sign, so that you know that the room has been sanitized before your class. Um, so going into the classroom, the idea is that students will be coming to class, going through the screening protocols to come up to your class. We're trying to avoid congregation in the hallways outside of the classroom. So hopefully we are shuttling them into the classroom, again, maintaining that social distancing. So the classrooms have had chairs and tables removed and separated, so it makes it easier to provide guidance to the students of where they're sitting, and the lab stations. And it's pulling up the COVID-19 fall syllabus statement right now. So in this statement, we're encouraging all faculty to use this as an addendum or attachment to your syllabus, so they can all use as faculty, adjunct, and full-time, use this document as a way to refer students to the protocols of the college. We're trying to keep a positive attitude so students know that they are, again, safe on campus, and they're following, again, the protocols that are dictated by the executive orders from the government. So first thing is face masks to be worn inside the building at all times. That includes classrooms, and hallways. And again, as Anna said, no eating, drinking to avoid the mask coming off. So statement also includes the protocols for health screening, as Sirhan went over. And the only note here is that um, students that do fail and faculty that were to fail the protocol for screening will not be allowed in the building, will not be able to go to class. So that means they would need to use a communication method. If it's a student communicating with their faculty that they are not able to attend that day, if it's a faculty member, they'll have to communicate with not only the coordinator or dean, but also with the students. That class will have to be canceled or moved to remote for that day, um, and arrangements will have to be made. I personally use Canvas messaging um, to all my students and post an announcement so the students know that it's something that can happen. So we suggest all faculty review this document within the first class period for each of the students. Navigating through the building, all students, again, will go through the entrance and screening process. Some buildings are designed to have an entrance and exit, especially the F building will be entering through the STEM entrance. So all the nursing students will be entering through STEM. Again, following the limited capacity for elevators and rides, we're encouraging most students who use the stairs to have the traffic flow moving along. Because this process may take several minutes, even though the screening of the temperature only takes 2 or 3 seconds. Um, we are encouraging students to come along a little bit ahead of time so they can get through to their classroom. Again, having to walk through the stairwells might take a little extra time. So we're encouraging them to get there a little bit early so they can get to class on time. Within the classroom, you'll be assigned the students will be assigned workspace. In labs, they'll have lab stations. Um, Obviously, all of their bags, accessories should be kept underneath their table, their desk, not in the walkways to avoid any hazards. Garbage cans have been moved back into the classroom for disposal of any PPE equipment, disinfecting wipes, any other garbage. And this is, again, a highlight that no eating, drinking, or chewing gum should be permitted in the classroom or lab. This is standard protocols for any lab class um, in the school. The culinary has their own kitchen protocols, which they're finalizing, I believe, today or tomorrow, for how they're testing the food. There's special protocols for that. As Anna mentioned, grab and go food at the cafe will be suggested to eat outside. So anyone that leaves a building to go eat or drink um, can have to come back through the building. They will have to go back through the temperature screening again. It's been asked about drinking water in the classroom. Um, I'm hearing an echo, and I don't know if someone's just not muted. So again, drinking water, if you need to drink water, it's suggested that you go out in the hallway and drink water in the hallway, and then you can return to class. Um, Purpose of all of this is to maintain social distancing within the classroom, hallways, in the bathrooms. So if you see students that are leaving your class in the middle of class, to use the restroom, encourage them to use social distancing and be mindful of the limits on the restroom, and which are posted outside of the restroom. Any additional information can be found on the RTC website, which is on the document.
Just a quick note that we will be circulating a copy of the presentation to everyone who logged in today, and some of the links to reinforce some of the resources that we have. So just stay tuned for that. I did also want to mention in terms of when either an employee of yours or a student of yours, let's say they do call in and they say, I'm not well, I'm not coming in, or let's say I failed, I couldn't get into the building because I failed the screening test. Just be mindful that we are trying to hold everyone harmless. And so don't, this is not an opportunity to penalize the student for not bringing in their work. Just have a little bit sort of more of an extended situation. The students are still expected to to deliver whatever content or assignments that you need them to, but just be mindful of the timing and not penalizing them for not being able to make it to class for one of those reasons. And same thing for employees. We definitely don't want to penalize employees for staying home because they're not well, because it's really it's really a community effort here. So we're just about.
Two more to add, sorry.
Sure.
Go back. Because of the limited capacity of the classrooms, some classes are going to be expected to have a called AB sequence. Students in the A sequence will come, like say, week 1, and that will be maybe half the class, and the other half of the class will come on week 2, the B group. The purpose of this is to maintain that social distancing within the classroom. Obviously, students in Group A that are on ground will be in person, while Group B will be remote. So instructors will need to also sign into WebEx and have the class participate synchronously but remote. With this in mind, all faculty should telling their students that if for any reason the class does need to go to a remote format, they should be prepared, and the instructor will notify the students for it to happen. For example, if someone were to have COVID and quarantine for 2 weeks, the class would be remote for those 2 weeks, and then hopefully go back to in-person instruction after the 2 weeks are over. Thank you.
So we're basically at the discussion portion of the presentation. The only other slide we have is just the links to resources that you'll get as a follow-up. And so I just wanted to open this up in terms of some of the what-if scenarios. I should note that one of the resources that we'll be sharing is a link to the frequently asked questions that the working group, the HR working group of the task force has put together. It's a pretty comprehensive list of questions, and it's divided so that it's easier for you to see what are some of the questions that may be pertaining to students, what are some that may be specific to just general health and safety and other measures. But it's a great resource for you to be aware of, either for yourself or perhaps for a colleague or even a student. And so this is kind of the basis of the discussion. We went over basically all of the information in the presentation in terms of what if I don't pass the screening, what happens? So I just wanted to open it up for questions, questions for clarification, other questions or other concerns. If feel free to unmute yourself. And I'm going to stop sharing the presentation just so I can see everyone. We have about 40 people here, so let us know if you have any questions or something we haven't gone over that you're interested in. No questions? We did a great job.
Can I talk about one of the what if scenarios, just so
Sure.
everybody's clear on so there's going to be a recommendation so what if you had a student who tested positive in your classroom? Okay. And so that's something that might happen. One is that class is going to go remote. Um, and we recommend that all the students in that class quarantine for 14 days. Um, and the person who tested positive to get medical clearance to return to campus, just the person who tested positive. Others in the classroom, we recommend that they just quarantine and just monitor their symptoms if they have any symptoms to seek medical help. That's one of the more common what if scenario or questions that we get when we do this training is so that's something that's going to be and then we also recommend the same for faculty, staff, administration, that they reach out to their supervisor if they're sick or if they test positive or whatever the case may be, but that the class go remote. Any questions? This is a good group, Anna.
Thank you, Saran. Another point I guess I wanted, I think it's worth mentioning that has come up in other groups. So some of you are maybe very excited to come back to campus if you are expected to be on campus. Some of you may be excited to be back on campus, but a little bit nervous about what's going on in the world and with how this may impact you and your family. So I just wanted to remind everyone that we still have the Employee Assistance Program for you to be able, and that's one of the resources that we'll share as a follow-up to the presentation. You are able to call into a toll-free number to be able to get resources or perhaps speaking to a person, a professional. They also have a website with more educational information and webinars that you can do on your own. So those are still available to anyone who feels that they may need it, perhaps, or refer them to a colleague. Any other questions about coming to campus, about what to do if something happens? Think about your day-to-day. I know we very quickly switched to remote, and then remote became the new normal, and now we're kind of trying to switch back. And I know that will be an adjustment for many as well. So just think about your day and what to expect, and let us know if you have any questions.
Anna, I just want to say one thing also. If any, things might come up where, there may be scenarios or situations that might come up that we haven't considered or, we haven't put in place or whatever the case may be. If you have a question or a concern or something comes up, make sure you reach out to your supervisor, ASAP. And this way, these are things that we're as a task force, as a return to campus task force, we're going to continuously meet every week and discuss any scenarios or anything that might come up that we probably didn't, think about, or something unexpected happened. And we will recommend and advise according to like recommendations or any new guidelines. So if anything comes up, make sure you reach out and let us know. Thank you.
And I have a question.
Sure.
If administratively, see, I don't have classes, do you have to return to campus because the campus is open?
The short answer
Well,
is it depends.
yeah, we submitted a plan to the president that showed which areas were being staffed, which offices were being occupied, and Dr. Reber has used that information for different purposes in corresponding with NJCCC. If there's going to be a variance from what we provided, so for example, Lori Margolin provided me a rotating schedule for coverage in the continuing ed office. Paula, I know you've been coming in certain days to the office. If there's going to be a change that wasn't reported in that initial report to the president, then we would want to be aware of that.
Thank you, Dr. Friedman. But I would just say generally, in terms of what to expect, we do expect a very reduced capacity of people generally on campus. I should note that, so 85% of classes are still online and remote, so only about 15% of classes are on the ground, with the caveat that most of those classes are in our STEM, our culinary, our nursing and health sciences. So there will certainly be a lot more activity in the STEM building, perhaps, or the culinary building than other buildings. That said, in terms of the student support services, as Dr. Friedman mentioned, most areas are on some kind of alternating or staggered schedule. So there's only one or two people sort of covering. Most areas are still offering remote services, and some areas may offer some in-ground services. For example, HR, we will be on campus in person. At least someone in the office will be in person Mondays and Thursdays. But otherwise, we will continue to provide all our services and programs remotely. We are very mindful. There were a number of assessments made by the task force and the various working groups in terms of how many people are we expecting to be coming through, at 9 a.m. on a Monday, given the number of classes we have, where they're scheduled, how they're scheduled. So all of those assessments have been done. So we are definitely mindful about the capacity in each of our buildings. So even to the point where some of the logistical things, so I'm in the A building on the 3rd floor, and there's only one restroom here for women, and it has a capacity of 1. So it's one person at a time. So we want to be mindful of how this is happening. And so if there are certain changes that, we'll need to make, or adjustments we'll need to make, that's why the task force is still very much active as we go through the beginning of the semester. I hope that's helpful. Anyone else? Clive Lee, I don't want to put you on the spot. You want to talk about some of the preparations that you may have in your labs?
Hello, everyone. Actually, our lab tech, Pfizer, Yvonne, and the whole team, they have done a very good job. They clean up the lab. They make sure that every room, there's only either 8 or 9 chairs. And in front of the room is already posted when to be clean, when the room will be clean. So that, I think, is for both us and the cleaning people, what they do. I think we are ready. We have cargoes, we have everything. I think we are ready. We are ready.
I think so too.
Don't be afraid. We are ready. It's good.
I think so too. Thank you, Professor Lee. Do we have anyone from the library who can talk about the library services? Maybe not, because we had a separate session for them, but there is some services in the library right now. I think they had a curb delivery kind of service so we do have we do have a little bit of everything, but we are still very mindful of how much exposure we have on campus with all the people that we may expect on campus. All right, if there are no other questions, I don't see any questions in the chat, at least not to me. Well, I'm happy to wrap this up. As I mentioned, I will be sending a copy of the presentation to everyone who had logged in. If you are only calling in by phone so that the WebEx doesn't pick up your registration, please contact me so I can forward all the information to you. And part of that follow-up will also be some of the links and resources that we discussed throughout the presentation. So I think that's it. I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Peter and Sirhan. You did a wonderful job. I greatly appreciate your time and your commitment to making this work for everyone, and to all of our working groups and our task force members. It's been really a tremendous effort. We're basically there. Everything, I'm in the office now, very happily in the office, away from my kids and family for a little bit. But everything from the screening to the signage to, using the stairwells, I think we've done our very best to think through everything. But it is, I'm certainly, certain scenarios may come up that we'll have to plan through. So I appreciate everyone logging in. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Have a wonderful beginning of the semester to those of you who are officially beginning the semester in your classes. So have a good day.